I could feel it.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, my friends, and welcome back to the Cozy Club. On today's video, guys, we are going to revisit the one free-to-play raid team to rule them all, Nuclear Ian. Our once little man Ian here has been hitting the weight room, guys. The guy is putting out 4+ million damage now within the raid, which is absolutely bonkers with one person within one club. Now, if you're here to either A, learn how to use the team and reliably get 2, 3, or 4 million damage, or B, maybe you've learned how to use the team, but you're not quite getting that maximum damage that you think you can get, I can promise you at the end of this video, you're going to know everything and walk away with some great knowledge that's really going to amp up the overall damage. And yes, the primary team we're going to be talking about today is free to play friendly, baby. Now, you might recall that we did have a video on Ian way back when the raid released. Ian is a god, and we got that bad boy out there very quickly right when the raid released, and it was really cool to get that out there. But what I love about the DSA community is since then, the community has built and just pushed the limit to the possible damage for the Ian team, adding more characters, more flexibilities, and the best ways to use them. Let's learn the A to Z about Ian. Let's dive into it. So starting off with the goal of this team, guys, the goal of this team is to deal, honestly, as little damage as possible. Yes, you heard that right. We want to deal as little damage as possible while inflicting as many debuffs as possible to line it up to have Ian go right up there and hit the grand slam. Easy concept, but there's a lot of little things that are going to make a huge difference. As far as the team goes and the characters that make up this team, we're going to be looking at 3 essential characters, and these are going to be the ones that you want to get up no matter what. For free to play, pay to play, doesn't matter. We've got Sally, our Sorcerer's Chosen, Barley, and Ian. These are going to be both on the free to play variants and the pay to play variants of this team, and are definitely the essential characters of the Nuclear Ian. Now, as for the other characters, more on them in just a second. We're going to walk you through all of the variants, and if you don't happen to have one character, who to use in their spot. We're going to quickly go character by character, teaching you guys really all the little tips that you need to know about that one character, abilities, the speed stones, the order on who you should be gearing up, and the importance they play to deal the massive damage. Now, for that, guys, I'm bringing on a special guest, Patrick GC. I call him the Ian Whisperer. Some of you guys might remember a couple years back, we had an Onward video that Patrick started in way back, and he's here again to teach us all about maximizing this Ian team. Me and him are going to go through the characters, the essentials, and then I'm going to walk you guys through a raid battle that could have been better, and you guys are going to see the highlighted differences that would make a big difference. Mr. Patrick GC, the Ian Whisperer, it is good to have you back at the Cozy Club. For those that don't know, Patrick and me are actually in the same club, going on for about a year now. Since we have not seen you since the Onward video, what have you been up to in DSA, my man?
Just been playing DSA, trying to knock down our raid as fast as I can. Currently trying to farm up those pesky T8 Kingdom characters for Maleficent, so I can finally get her 7-star.
Yeah, so with that being Maleficent, that was the original Ian team. Was that some inspiration for you, like for this more free-to-play, huge, and now it's even better in some cases, team to kind of find something that works for you?
Yeah, I mean, so I knew the original free-to-play team. I knew Ian from the start would be great in the raid. People were showing these Maleficent runs, and I was like, there's got to be something else that can work besides just one or the other. So I came up with sort of the third option just because I didn't have Maleficent to work with. So yeah, I worked with what I had.
Well, dude, I love that, you know, when videos first come out, right, they're there mainly as a template, something that people can start on in that first couple weeks of the raid. But then, like I said before in this video, guys, the community can build on these teams like crazy. And Patrick, you've taught me a lot of little things about this team that really increase your overall damage. So we're going to go ahead. Let's go and hop into the characters. And I want you to talk about each thing that those characters are supposed to do and the little things that are going to increase your overall damage. So the characters, the most important part of this run, guys, this first team we're going to talk about is going to consist of Sally, Barley, Wendy, most importantly with Ian, and then lastly, we're going to have a Sorcerer's Chosen that is Oogie Boogie. Now, the most important piece to these runs, it's not Ian. it's going to be what Sally can do. So I want us to go ahead and talk to Patrick here about Sally first. What is Sally supposed to be doing on the team, and what are some little tips and tricks that people can do to most utilize their Sally?
I mean, Sally's, if you pull her basic up right there, the reason why she's there, she can put out just a ton of continuous damage on her basic. And she also gives herself turn meter. And if the other party has fear, and she can do it twice 75% of the time. So she's sitting there doing her basic, just pumping out continuous damage 3 at a time, ×2, and then also pumping up her own turn meter. She gets turn after turn. She's the continuous damage queen pretty much in this raid.
Just getting harmful effects to really hit that giant Ian run. Now, this is more about Wendy, but one thing that I want you to kind of talk about that I've made mistakes on is when you shadow Sally. What Sally should you shadow? That's a tongue twister. But what Sally should you shadow?
Yeah, if you shadow a Sally, what Sally should you shadow? Yeah, yeah. So you always want to shadow your not main Sally, your Sally Prime, but you want to shadow your shadows. Especially once you start, you have a little bit of extra gear on Sally there, Cozy. Once you start getting her other speed piece on her, she'll start doing enough damage that these shadows will start doing about a couple hundred damage, but the shadows of shadows do 1 damage. And you're like, is having the 1 damage twice for 6 continuous damages.
Yep. That's stacking the harmfuls.
That's the juice right there.
Got it. Okay.
Stacking the harmfuls, low damage.
Awesome. So with Sally, basic only. Let's go ahead and look at the next character. So now we've got Wendy Darling. Now, Wendy's arguably the hardest character to get out of this bunch, guys, but very essential, and you can get her through Club Conquest, and she's all about the shadow. Patrick, outside of the obvious of shadowing, what's your main role? What do you want to be doing with Wendy and her abilities?
Yeah, so everyone knows about her first special that makes shadows. Getting the haste on the shadows, so you have speedy shadows is nice, but her basic will call a shadow to assist. So every one of her basic, she's be calling one of the Sally shadows once again do those 2 continuous damages. And then her second special can give offense up. So Ian, you need offense up and crit power. She can fill in for bubbles for the offense up right there and give a 1 turn to Ian for the big boom at the end.
Yeah, and so that's why Wendy is so utilized, right, guys? She does shadows, but then you don't have to really worry about the Mufasa spell because you've got the attack up. Even though it's only for 1 turn, it's kind of the perfect setup. And so every turn that Wendy's going, she's doing something to help the team. Now, as far as kind of the stones go and her overall, I know you talk about this a lot. What's one thing that you want to make sure with Wendy that everybody does?
Speed stone, and make sure you get her T9 speed pieces. You have all 3 of them right there. Yeah, she's a really fast 169 right now. If you take those T9 speed pieces away, she drops way down to the low 140s, and she gets way too slow, and she can't make enough shadows quick enough. Her turns just don't come by fast then. So you want a fast Wendy to make this work.
So basically, faster the Wendy, the more shadows, the more damage. Let's go to the next one. Now, we've got a Sorcerer's Chosen ×2 here. Now, you might be thinking this might be counterproductive, but trust me, if you're getting 4 million damage, it doesn't really matter all too much, Patrick, right? So we've got Oogie Boogie. Now, why do you like Oogie? I've been using him a lot in kind of Machine Gun Hades, but why does Oogie belong on this team, and what does he do for the team?
So Oogie fills sort of 2 roles in one. And that's why he's amazing on this team, is he's the only character in the game that can put out slow and fear. He can do it pretty consistently. He has a multi-turn for both. And so he can both slow down the Titan, which you're running anything against these Titans once rocks down. Slow is super vital. And then the fear, so Sally hits twice and it's never resisted. So all your debuffs are going to stick.
Awesome. So you want the slow out there as fast as possible. Then you want to land that fear, not only to land the harmfuls, but then have Sally do the possible 3 hits, correct?
Yeah, the double hits 3 times. So you can get, if Sally double hits with her 3 continuous damage stacks, it's a 6 stack for 1 attack.
Perfect. And on top of that, he could take some damage from like the Ice Titan or others. He can kind of tank that. So definitely it's worth having those 2 guys for the extra bit of damage. We've got 2 more important characters. It's the Onward Brothers. Let's talk about them. So the first of the Onward Brothers is Barley. Now, what is Barley's role in the team? And is it very complicated? And kind of talk about that.
Yeah, so Barley, I feel like everyone's tired of me talking about these guys. We've been on 2 years now, but we're still going. So Barley, he gives magic and he gives crit power up. The crit doesn't really matter so much on Quest to Yor. The thing on Barley people don't realize, and I've had people ask me, can I sub out Barley for like Woody or Frozone or something? Barley assists that he calls He can call 1 to assist. If he's in a back corner, he can call the front middle. That can be Sally. If he starts calling those shadows to assist, you can get 6 from Wayne, Sally, and then 2 other shadows can be 6 more. He can get 8 continuous damages on 1 of his basics if it lines up right. It's ridiculous.
It's yeah, and that's where he really it's like Barley again does something with every single turn, right? So I think the one thing that I want to talk about is, yes, the magic reduction is important for probably the Titans outside of the Ice Titan. But yeah, the basic calling through assist. Again, guys, the name of the game is how many continuous damages can you pop on? But with Quest of Yore, we know that Ian wants it at the end. Where else should you use it at the beginning of that battle?
It really helps early on to refill your Wendy's magic a little bit. So Wendy, for her shadows, is the 3 cooldown. Quest gives anyone 1 magic, not just Ian. So you can give that to her. She can make another Sally a little bit faster. If your Barley's super fast and your Wendy's slow, maybe do it a second time. But don't press your luck because you'll run out of magic to give to Ian at the end.
Okay, perfect, man. Well, let's go ahead and talk about Ian. Let's go to his brother. Ian is the main man of the hour and the one that most of you guys are going to get up to Gear 9 first. But with Ian, really, what is his role? Probably the easiest role in the team, yeah, except the most important.
Yeah, I mean, so the big booms that everyone knows about, the Voltaire move at the very end, finish them off, offensive crit power up. The other nice thing Ian does on his first special is he extends all the debuffs by 1. One of the problems you can run into if you don't use this properly is all your debuffs will fall off from your first round of continuous damages. So in the Titan, after the Titan takes their first turn, I'd use that once. And that gives you 1 more turn of sort of go-arounds on it right there. And because it's all of them, even though it's a massive stack, it'll extend all of them by 1, which no one else can do that, except for maybe Demona.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny because with that, it's too late for a lot of us, but if you don't have Magnora kind of leveled up, it's actually kind of good. You want to do least, less damage as possible here, because the one con to do in this, right, is it does a fair bit of damage, but you can still get those big hits, correct?
Yeah, I mean, mine's 2 leveled up. I've got too good of an Ian. If you had a worse Ian and he just had the first, if you go back to it, Cozy, the first upgrade on him is all you really need there.
Yeah. Level 2, the increasing duration of helpful effects by 1. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that helps when you're trying to stall. But yeah, when he extends all of the harmful effects, that's what really makes this work, because otherwise you'd lose some of those original continuous damages off the Titan's first round of moves.
Okay, perfect. And of course, we want Ian to go the slowest, right? We want Wendy and Sally to be very fast. Oogie just needs to be somewhat there to get the fear and the slow out there. And then Barley, of course, the faster the better with the assist. But for Ian, we need him to be the slowest, right?
Yeah, and slowest relative. So if you have a T9 Ian, you really need all your other characters to be at T8.5 speed, because the speed meter is kind of weird in the raid. It's not like PvP where it's like a turn order, but the characters will go more often if they're faster. So if you have a really fast Ian, he's not adding much until the big boom. He's sort of adding maybe a blind here and there, but you really want him the slowest on the team by as much as you can stomach. You want him just sort of hanging out and then boom at the end, pretty much.
Perfect. And as far as just looking at the other characters that you can use, that's the free-to-play team, guys. That's a great team for the Ice Titan. However, the Lava Titan can kill shadows pretty fast. Patrick, this is where you like to plug in Maleficent in there instead, typically, right, to get some more harmfuls and a little bit of a safer run.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't have Maleficent, but I've talked to a lot of people that run a Maleficent team. The advantage you have with her is, unlike shadows, she can put out up to 8 continuous damages on her basic, which is, it's better than Sally, but she doesn't give herself turn meter, so she's a little bit slower doing it. She's not as squishy as those shadows are. So if you have a Sally and a Maleficent, this is all those shadows, works a little better against lava. The thing with her, she's great, and she can get a lot of damage. I've seen damage up to 4 million with her. We get past 4 million. The problem with Maleficent is she does so much damage, you can empower the Titan too quick.
Yeah, right.
So if you look at if you look at her continuous damages, because you pull her basic up for me real quick.
Yep.
And this is what you need to know is if you look at how much continuous damage she lays out, it's 1,200. Sally's putting it less than 1,000. So if you add up over hundreds, she's putting an additional 40, 50, 60,000 damage at Sally wouldn't be. So you just can't get quite as much built up with her because she does more damage.
Awesome. Yeah, guys, so it's all about the little things, and we'll wrap it up here, but I mean, essentially, guys, if you don't have Wendy, you can definitely still use there's a stepping stone system, and you can lower your expectations a bit, but there are things like using Bubbles and Chunk, right? Chunk can get the fear out there, and Bubbles is good to go ahead and get attack up, and he does slows as well, right, Patrick?
Yeah, Bubbles still isn't basic. So as far as if you don't have Wendy or Maleficent, you need slow, and you need fear, and you need offense up. You need some combination of those three. Bubbles can do slow. You can give offense up. He also can kill turn meter of stare down, which is kind of nice too. So that's why he's in that free-to-play team. The problem with Bubbles is he himself does a lot of damage, but he attacks over and over again.
Yeah.
So he's not optimal. If you don't have Wendy, he's the next best option to try and, you said, that slow and offense up double dip. And then go over to pull Chunk up for me, because Chunk's the other one that's kind of the hidden gem here. So Chunk is your guy for fear, your best fear option with who's not Oogie. Other characters have fear. They either do too much damage, like a Randall, or like lots, so they don't do enough else to help you. If you have a fast Chunk, he can put out fear and extend it with his first special. You get a 2-turn fear that way, and then later on in the match, he can add it passively for you.
All right, Patrick. Well, thanks for coming on and talking to us about the characters. We're going to run them through a raid run, kind of before a lot of this advice, and point out the little things. Even though it's a 2 million damage run, there's some things that we could have done to improve it. And really, guys, if everybody's improving their run, you're going to be doing a whole lot more damage. Now, lastly, what are some last notes of the most important things, Patrick, that people should take into account?
Yeah, so no matter what characters you're using, you have to land your slow and your fear immediately. So if you're using Oogie, he has to hit the slow, he has to hit the fear. It's resisted to restart your run. If you're using Bubbles and Chunk, Bubbles hits slow, Chunk hits fear, Chunk extends it. If that doesn't happen, you start your run.
Yeah, it stinks. Sometimes you'll get the perfect run. Everything lines up, but you don't get the crit power up, and it's just best to restart if you're doing a heroic. Luckily, unlike the Eve team, this is a very fast setup. It happens pretty quickly, and it doesn't take too long. And for me personally, typically is under 5 runs until I get something that I want to do. What is the peak damage you've seen? You said is about 4.5. You've done that yourself. We've shown that. And what's the average damage people should be pretty much aiming for?
So it really depends on the speed of your characters. So if you have your characters all with full T9 speed pieces, I'd say it averages between 3.5, 3.8. You can get over 4. 4.5 is crazy RNG. I've seen a 4.8.
It has escalated so much. Well, Patrick, thank you so much for coming on, man. We're going to go take a look at that run. And thank you for being our Ian Whisperer for the Cozy Club, buddy.
Thanks for having me, Cozy. Always a pleasure. And best luck to Voltaires, man.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. All right, let's get some hands-on action with the raid and this Ian free-to-play team. Now, I'm going to be getting around 2 million damage for this run, and I'm going to point out the different things that I could have done differently to maximize my damage. Now, guys, you're going to have to know all of your characters. They're going to be all over the place with gear, speeds, and everything like that. But it's most important that you know what that character should be doing when their turn comes up. So here we go. We've got the team consisting of Ian, Wendy, Sally, Barley, and Oogie Boogie. Now, the first thing I'm going to point out is the positioning. Honestly, my positioning is not bad within this team layout, but it's also not perfect. You're going to want to have Oogie Boogie, then Wendy, then Sally, followed by Barley and Ian. And again, it's all about the little things and doing as little damage as possible. By having Barley behind Ian, you're going to ensure that that guaranteed crit doesn't start stacking up on Wendy over time. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and imply what Patrick has talked to us about the characters and also show you guys what to do here. Now, this first character shadow, you definitely are going to use Wendy's shadow on Sally. But as we were taught, you actually, from there on out, want to go ahead and copy the Sally shadow. You don't want to copy the main shadow because you want the less damage and less damage being applied onto the Titan. Now, mistake number 2 that was made in this run, but it's important to call out, is you guys can see in the top right there, fear and offense down is laid on the board. You actually want to lay in the slow first with Oogie Boogie. Getting that slow one first is going to allow you to have more turns in between the next turn of that Titan, and then you can come back with Oogie and put the fear on the board. You put the fear on the board for Sally, but the slow is important to get more turns in between. Now, you guys might notice the next turn with Barley is using his Quest of Yore on Wendy. This is very weird for people that have played the game a ton. Why would you give this to Wendy? It's all about getting the shadow cooldowns and making as many Sallys as physically possible. Now, Sally's job is easy. You only want a basic attack with Sally. Nothing crazy, just basic. And if Wendy's doing a little bit of everything, but if Wendy doesn't have her shadow, you want to go ahead and use her basic. Now, her second ability you can use on Sally. It's a little risky because you're stacking up the damage. You mainly want to save that for the Ian big hit attack and continue to wail away with Ian as a basic and Wendy with her basic as well. So here we go. We're going to keep on throwing these continuous damages, and the Ice Titan is going to be picking on Oogie. Now, Oogie's great here. He did inflict the slow that you guys just saw. You're going to finally get that slow out. And at this point, guys, we're trying to go ahead and stack as many harmful effects as possible. Within the battle, a couple of times, I pull up the menu, and you guys are going to see just how many harmfuls we managed to stack. Now, you guys saw just then, I went ahead and shadowed that main Sally. Again, don't do that. You want to go ahead and shadow the other Sally to minimize that overall damage and get those sweet, sweet ones that you're seeing right there instead of the 1800s. Now we're going to continue with Ian. Hit some basic damage there. And at this point, doing a basic with Oogie because you've run out of those abilities. And with Barley, you don't want to do the magic school bus. You might think you want to go ahead and stop those ice spikes, but you want to stick with the basic attack here because you saw the RNG happen. Wendy and Ian assisted, but if Barley would have called the Sallys to assist, you're getting all that more continuous damage laid on the board, and it really starts to stack up. Plus, you get the magic increase. So here we go. We continue to throw. It's a very quick run. We continue to throw, and we've learned what we've learned so far. And coming up soon, the Ice Titan is going to get a turn. Now, there's two schools of thought here, and I've talked with Patrick about this. When do you use the big Ian attack, right? And I'll tell you here in a second when you want to precisely use it, because I messed up a bit here, and I'm always worried about doing too much damage to the Ice Titan. So here we go. We continue with the continuous damages. We have it on ×2 so that you guys get a little bit more of a follow-up here. And you can just see how much damage we've inflicted at this point. Just loads and loads of debuffs where Ian is going to lay on the nuke for all of these. Now, it's a little risky, and again, if your Ian has less ability here, it could be better, but you can extend all those 1 stacks of continuous damages with Ian. I elected not to on this particular run, but you have a ton of debuffs stacking up. So many mistakes with this one run, and we still got 2 million, so it's easy to really stack this up. Now, here we go, guys. This is where it really starts to matter. When the ice spikes are up on the board, you might be tempted to attack the Titan. You only want to attack this Titan with the Shadow Sallys and then possibly your main Sally. Everyone else should be attacking the ice spike because you want to just be stacking and minimalizing that damage, getting as many turns in between as possible. And we're about to start setting up for the big boom attack, right? So you got to kind of measure where that boss turn meter is and where your turns are and how the speed is going. But from what I've learned, as soon as Barley's Quest of Yore is back up, once again, you use the first one on Wendy. When it's up again, you want to use that on Ian, extend it with his, first ability there. And you want to wait until that baby ticks down to 1 turn. And now what I did here, a little bit different. You want to look at your lineup, and it's fine as long as you get the damage off. I went in ahead and applied Wendy's offense up. You get 1 turn of it. You can use Mufasa, but you get 1 turn of the offense up. And now it's on Barley's turn, and the Quest of Yore is ready. This is all about the patience we were talking about. This is it right here. At this moment, you hope, you pray that crit damage up lands on Ian. And on this particular run, it did. If it does not, it's a bummer. But you got to restart if you want the maximum amount of damage. It's going to be tempting, but go ahead and just restart the run. So here we go. We're set up to success. We made a lot of mistakes, but we're still going to net an overall 2 million damage run, up to 5 million if you can squeeze more of those Sally hits. I don't have a Gear 9 plus Sally piece, and there's a few things that I'm missing gear-wise, but there you go. We've got the 1.8 there, and this one is very easy to emulate. But as you can see from this clip right here, the 4 million damage is just the chef's kiss, and this is a very reliable damage to go back and get very easily very fast. And if you have all of your team doing it, your whole club is doing this, and each person has learned how to get around 2.5 up to 4 million, you're going to clear the ice, the rock, the lava that much easier. Now, the ice, it's going to do a lot more. The lava, you're going to have to use different characters. And the rock, you'll have to be a little bit different on your approach. But as you guys know, the damage potential is out of this world. So here we go. The run has ended up. And of course, it ends up being about 2 million flat. So not the craziest run that you've ever seen, but it was a good run to break down the small mistakes. So there you have it, Cozy Club. Between Patrick GC, the Ian Whisperer coming on, and then breaking through the raid and teaching you guys the little things. Hopefully you walked away with a bit of knowledge from this, and we might go back and revisit some older raid teams as we're about to be launching a top raid characters list coming up here pretty dang soon. Again, if you're missing a character, no sweat. Go ahead and farm a character below that on the priority chart. Again, Bubbles and Chunk are great, super free-to-play options. You can throw Maleficent with literally anyone with fear on the board, and you're going to get that job done. Slow, fear, offense up, crit power up. Those are the important aspects of this team. My friends, if you enjoyed today's video, go ahead and leave a like down below. If you haven't already, subscribe to the Cozy Club today and comment down below what is the most damage that you have done with an Ian team. Thank you guys so much for coming on by. If you want more of these, let me know. And until next time, stay cozy.